And I like the fact that we highlight female pizza makers. This is really important. There aren't enough in this industry, and we really want to try to highlight that as much as we can. There's actually an organization called Women in Pizza. You could look it up on Instagram. But these women are extremely talented. They've got very interesting backgrounds. One's kind of a pop-up and a different business, and one is a baker and has a bakery at the Grove at the Farmers Market. But leading the discussion today to talk about these two different pizzaiolas and to talk about these different strategies for dough, one of our dear friends at Pizza City Fest, she's worked on the Modernist, well, all the Modernist brand books, but Modernist Pizza is specifically how we came together. She's also a fellow Wisconsin grad, so go Badgers. Any Wisconsin Badgers here? No? Okay, one of you. Thank you very much. All right, on Wisconsin. Please give a warm Pizza City Fest welcome to Stephanie Swane.
Thank you, Steve. Awesome to be here and really excited to be on the stage with these two amazing rock stars of the pizza and bread world. So glad you guys made it. They're going to do an amazing job building up the momentum and excitement of throwing down their doughs and sharing really what their step-by-steps are between starting their dough to saucing to topping. And then at the end, I'll open up the forum for you guys to ask any questions you have. As Steve mentioned, we got two amazing women up here. Jillana Miller over here, Miller Butler. If you haven't checked out Miller Butler yet, San Pedro in the house. They're right over here on my left side. So definitely go and get a slice. Beautiful slice, beautiful pizza. Miller Butler, they've been open since 2020, so right before the pandemic, and they are doing a beautiful job popping up all over town. It's a husband and wife duo, and they're kicking ass. Just got a ghost kitchen, so building and doing a lot of really great places. Then we've got Roxana Jullapat over here. Roxana, if you don't know Roxana, she's been kicking ass in LA for a long time with her bakery, friends and family. And I'm really honored to have Roxana here. We've known each other for a long time, and she published a beautiful book in 2021 called Mother Grains, and she's writing another book now. So I'm really excited to have the diversity of these two women who are both making pizza, both highly skilled in dough education and knowledge, but two totally different doughs, two totally different concepts. So we're going to talk about that. And then also afterwards, you can talk through and ask questions about their dough. So we're going to start off over here with Jillana. Jillana's dough is more towards your artisan dough, so high heat. She's firing off in a wood oven. And so let's talk a little about your flour and the dough you're using.
Yeah, so we use Cinque Stagione flour. It's a nice Italian flour, and we use a little bit of high gluten flour as well. And we do not a super long ferment, like 48 hours, 24 bulk, 24 balled up. Sometimes it's a 78. But yeah, as far as the flour, we use a high gluten and Cinque Stagione double zero.
All right, so you've got high gluten flour, Neapolitan, Italian brand, and then we've got Roxana over here, who's going to tell you a little about her whole grain dough.
So our dough,
New York style.
Is that what it called it? All right.
Kind of a New York.
So our dough is a sourdough-based dough. That means that it's risen naturally, and this is the beast that gets it where we want it to. So this is a starter called Levant that is born out of the same starter we use to make our bread at the Friends and Family Bakery. So when we decided we're going to make pizza, we just lining it up, added a little bit more water, and this is pretty liquidy.
Share your starter, take it around.
Yeah. Make sure to give it a good whiff.
Nice.
It's very healthy and stinky. Not overly sour, and even starting at this point, we make a blend of several whole grain flours. And then by the time this friend goes in the dough, I'm blending a little bit of what we call hard red wheat, and it's called red because the wheat itself is actually reddish, with a little bit of hard white wheat, which actually I call white because the kernel is a little bit whitish. And on top of that, we use California grown bread flour or high gluten flour.
All right, so everyone got that. You got a sourdough over here. You got a yeast-based. What's your hydration level?
66%, so not super high, but it's a nice stable dough, which really lends itself to mobile pop-ups.
Roxana?
And I do 60% in the dough, but the starter is 125% hydration.
All right. So let's talk about you talked about cold fermenting time frame. How long are you cold fermenting?
Overnight.
Overnight? Okay. So let's bake some dough. Show them your ball.
Yes.
Get this started.
Yes, absolutely.
So you'll be able to see kind of the quality. You can smell the sourdough while it goes around. Give it a nice floral sniff.
This is nice and wet right now, so I'm happy with it. It's been out just about the right amount of time.
How long do you usually try and have your ball out on the counter to?
6 to 8 hours is ideal. So I always tell people like mid to late pop-up, you're gonna get the primo dough. All of it is fantastic, but toward that time of the day, it's really in its ideal. And all of us behind the stand are like, ooh, baby, this dough is so nice. So 6 to 8 hours.
Softness and the pliability too, when she pulled that dough ball out.
Doesn't take
kind
much.
That's what you want to get to when you're pulling your dough. You want to make sure that it's soft and it's not so hard from the coldness.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want that snapback.
All right.
We getting started?
Go ahead and shake.
Okay, perfect. So our dough is great because it does have that pliability. It's very, very light. It just takes a couple of presses and a couple of turns, and that's when you know it's right where it needs to be. When you need to really pull it, it's still a little bit too cold. So.
And you'll also see that more with the higher hydration dough. Softer, able to pull, show.
Exactly.
And you can already see the bubbles forming on the outer side of the rim.
Yeah.
All right, Roxana, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So this is actually a little coolish, but I'm gonna give it a good massage. So I am an anti-pizza maker. Because
bread maker.
I'm really more of a bread person. So I approach this fellow over here as a little piece of bread, and I use more like bread science than pizza science. So I feel like an imposter here, but don't tell anybody. But because it is more bread-like than pizza-like, it does have sort of like a lot of strength. Like I can definitely fist around in here, and she's happy. And I can definitely give it a good massage. So similarly to Jillana's pizza, like we have to like let it sit on the counter for some time. And it does all the things that like a sourdough bread would do on the counter. So it has a kind of like a nice life on the counter also. And ours is nice, probably like 4 hours, 6 hours into the shift. Similarly like yours.
I think that's one thing if you're a newbie making pizza. How many people make pizza at home? Raise your hand. All right. Okay, I think that's one of the common problems that I see all the time with newbies is you're not letting your dough sit out long enough. So make sure that when you're taking it out of the fridge, you're letting it sit. And just like Jillana and Roxana, you can see the difference. Roxana's is a little colder. Jillana's came straight out, stretched, a little warmer. So you want to get used to that feel of what your dough is going to be like. And the higher gluten strength dough, you can see the stretch. It's going to be a little more forgiving than the double O, La Cinquanta Stagione.
Cinque Stagione, yeah.
All right, so let's start you want to do a top?
Yeah, let's do this. This is going to be our simple pleasure pizza, and that's kind of exactly how it eats. We really want the crust to shine, and we do a lot of really fun, exciting, unique, innovative pizzas at Miller Butler. We do banh mi pizza, miso pizza, birria pizza. We chose to do this one today because it's really a crowd pleaser, and even if you are someone who likes, big flavors, this is really nice because every single ingredient is the star. The crust pops, the beautiful tomatoes from Melissa's pop, really nice cheese, and of course the great olive oil. So the base is going to be a garlic cream sauce that we make. And
so what's in your garlic cream sauce?
it's very similar to like a Mornay. So it's garlic. We use our signature sofrito, which is a blend of Calabrian chili, oregano, marjoram, all sorts of different herbs, and heavy cream and Parmesan, salt and pepper.
So one of the things you can see in the up close with Jillana, and she mentioned a lot of herbs in her sauce, but one thing that I love is you don't have big chunks of herbs in your sauce. You
No.
got that dialed down so that I know looking at pizzas and judging pizzas a lot, that's one thing, again, that
Interesting.
people don't take the time to mise en place and make sure that their herbs are incorporated well into their sauce.
Yeah, so after the sauce, we do a little bit of spinach. Goes underneath the cheese so that it doesn't burn. I'm okay with a little bit popping through and getting a nice little char, especially in the wood fire. It's kind of nice. But obviously, it's very delicate and you don't want to burn it. On this pizza, I go extremely light on the cheese. And to me, sometimes less cheese is better. You actually taste the cheese more when there's less on certain pizzas. Then we go fresh tomato.
So one of the important points, again, that you made was delicate ingredients, putting them under the cheese. Another great way to protect them from a high flame. You're cooking in a wood fire, so it's going to char. You're also going to lift that pizza up.
Exactly.
Sometimes and get a little finish. So having that spinach or basil or leafy green on the top is going to cause a fire on your pizza.
Totally. Yeah, we do a kale mushroom goat cheese as well, and that goes under the cheese. But again, like a little pops through and you get a little char, which makes for some nuance. And then this goes in the oven. When it comes out, it gets a nice drizzle, generous drizzle of fresh olive oil, fresh parm, and our signature sofrito. And then a little Maldon salt.
All right.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you're serving today.
That's exactly what we're
over at
serving
the
today,
station.
right over here.
All right. Okay, Roxana.
All right. So this pizza, again, going with that anti-pizza theory. So I approach it similar to how I would approach one of my pastries at the bakery, right? So when I make our sauce, it's a little bit of a cheater sauce that I think is a really good way to make white sauce because it doesn't require any cooking. What I got here is some creme fraiche mixed with an egg yolk. And don't make faces, it's all good. It's delicious. And it's very effective. And my fear was that the creme fraiche would sort of like compete with the sourness of the dough, but it doesn't at all. Like it actually becomes sort of rich and really helps whatever you're putting in here. Sometimes I'll use this sauce with a little bit of tomato sauce too to sort of have like that lasagna.
A little bit of acid.
Yeah. And then here I'm gonna do, we're gonna do a little bit of mushroom. So I like to do a blend of cultivated and wild mushrooms. So it just kind of like hits that classic, veggie pizza. And then I do have a lot of mushroom pastries at the bakery. So I do know that you need a lot of mushrooms.
And you're prepping your mushrooms
And
ahead
I
of
pre-cook,
time?
absolutely. Please do yourselves a favor. Always cook your mushrooms before you put it in the pizza.
And do you olive oil?
Or you're gonna have, olive oil. Or else you're gonna have mushroom jerky on your pizza. And nobody likes that.
Yes. Always pre-cook your mushrooms.
And then I'm gonna do a little bit of skim milk mozzarella. And then just to make it even like richer and stinkier, I'm gonna do a little bit of fontina, just for flavor, a little bit more melt. It has a little bit more of a greasy feel. And then once this girl comes out of the oven, we do fresh arugula for a little bit more bite and a little bit of green, freshy flavor on there, and that's it.
So for your cheeses, you're mixing fontina and a low moisture.
Yes.
So for texture, taste, why else would you mix your cheeses?
So the mozzarella is just like really an efficient tool, right? It gets the cheese there. It covers your mushrooms so that they're not drying out of the oven. And then the fontina on the top, just because it's like sort of like the richer, more like the first thing to hit your mouth. So a little bit more pleasant, luxurious experience. It also has a little bit more depth of flavor, a little bit more stinky. So nice,
a little
nice
more
little
fat.
touch. And a little bit more fat. Yeah.
Which is also good.
Which is also
That's not a bad thing.
I mean, it's pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jillana, you want to talk a little bit about the cheese you're using?
Yeah, I breezed
You're hot.
right over that. We're using a very simple, essentially what I call pizza cheese. It's a blend of skim mozzarella and provolone. This is from Grande. And it's just the mozzarella, again, I think that Roxana explained really well, that it is, it doesn't make a big statement, but it familiarizes you with classic pizza. And then the provolone gives a little more bite, a little more depth. Again, not a super big, loud cheese, but that's where I like the nice Parmesan at the end.
So you're finishing with a parm.
Finishing with a really nice parm.
And you're finishing
Arugula.
with arugula.
Yeah.
Right, on top.
Yeah, just so that you feel better about eating all this.
all the cheese.
And rich.
And the
Yeah,
very
well, that fontina.
no fat
Exactly.
cream sauce.
Yeah, that very, very healthy cream sauce.
I love it. All right, so if we were in front of your oven right now, what would your temperature be? Because you're going high.
Yeah. Usually around 750, 800.
And
Not crazy
what kind
high.
of ovens are you using?
We have one custom, which my father built, which is really, really cool. It's, the outside is iron, so it heats very quickly. Definitely lends itself to our mobile life. We can pull up, 2 hours later, the oven's hot. So that's great. And then we also use Gosney rock boxes. So those, you can adjust the heat a little bit, but we're running them about the same temperature,
And what was your temp again?
750 to 800.
Okay.
Yeah,
And how long is your bake?
about 3 minutes. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, but about 3 minutes.
And when you put the pizza in the oven, you're twirling. Where are you finding
Yes.
your hot spot?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And because our oven is a handmade oven, we know that oven very intimately. We know the crack on one side. We know how to work it. We know the hot spots. And so we just kind of know which areas to really work. I always work from right to left. So my fresh pizza goes in on the right. I move it to the left. It's a little bit cooler over there. And then pop the next one in.
And in the not Gosney, you're putting in two pizzas at a time?
Yeah, sometimes we do 3 actually. We have 3 of them. So for catering events, they're fantastic because we can bang out pizzas, but we can also carry them down to the location. So those are very, very clutch.
All right, Roxana, let's talk about your bread
Yeah.
ovens.
All right.
For your pizza.
So the before we move into the pizzeria space at the original
Grove.
farmers market next to the Grove, we tested all our recipes in a bread oven. So our bread oven at the bakery goes to safely goes up to 550, right? Which I would never put my babies in there at 550. I'm talking about the bread. Never, never, never. 500,
Right.
sure, but that's about it. So for the pizza, once we switch to a real pizza oven, which is a deck oven, very similar to bread oven without steam on
What
any of
oven
that.
do you have?
It's a Baker's Pride.
Baker's Pride.
Yeah, and we inherited. So don't add me with the fancy oven brands, eh? But basically, I kind of use a bread approach, and I crank it to 600. The idea of baking anything at 700 gives me a panic attack. So, but I do like color, and we do get there. Our baking time is about 4 minutes, and we turn at about 3.
So you're
Okay.
turning about 3 minutes in,
Yeah.
and then finishing
And
off.
then finishing up.
Are you
Same
lifting your pizza up at all?
We don't lift. It's like this is deck oven is hot right
Only on
only
the
on the
bottom.
deck. Only on the deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which is kind of like great for sourdough pizza, because you're really gonna get worked You're gonna work your crust really nice. We never have soggy bottoms. Never. Not a thing. Not a thing for us.
Yeah, not a soggy bottom fan
Soggy
at
bottom,
all.
no.
At all. Got to check out those bottoms.
Right?
Check out those bottoms. All right, so after that, how many pizzas are you making in?
So we can put about, ideally 2, but we can definitely do 3. And we go same thing, right to left. And there's also a crack, kind of like right here. And then, so this is an 18-inch pizza, which is a big ass pizza.
Which is why I said more New York style.
Yeah, I get excellent point. And then we do slices. So that's another advantage of doing sourdough pizza, that we're able to like sort of slice them up. And as people come through the market, we like pop them back in slice by slice to give them a little flashy, and so you can get it really ripping hot.
So really important also if you're operating a New York slice place.
Yep.
What's the temp when you're reheating and how long?
Same. So like sometimes
you're not changing your deck.
Sometimes we're like reheating and baking a full pizza while we're reheating slices all the time.
Are you using screens?
We do use a screen. Yeah. You
Another
use screen?
trick if you're
Yeah,
reheating
yeah,
your pizza slices.
Yeah.
Get a
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah. So are you familiar with a screen? So it's like basically think of like those pizza pans that you use in traditional pizza parlors that are like almost like aluminum and really, really thin. It's exactly that, only it's made out of metal mesh. So you could see your pizza through.
So it's like a
it's
2-layer.
pretty thin. Yeah.
So you have the metal on the bottom straight through, and then you have the mesh on top.
Right.
So that you're less likely to burn the shit out of the bottom of the pizza and still
easy.
get a nice color and melt of your cheese. So important things to know when you're putting it back in. How long are you heating that up?
What was it? Like 50 seconds? What? 1 minute? Yeah.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we talked about building the pizzas.
Yep.
We fictitiously made the pizzas.
Right. We put them in the oven, gave them a couple turns.
Yeah, I gave it a couple turns. So I'm going to open it up to everyone out there because I want to make sure we're covering a lot of questions and using these amazing 2 minds to help you out, especially since we have so many people in the audience that are home bakers. So I'm going to come out in the crowd. Just raise your hand if you have a question.
Before you stretch the dough, does it matter what type of flour you coat it in? Some people do semolina, some people use the same flour that they use to make the dough. What are your thoughts on that?
Shaping with purely like 0-0 or, a regular flour, you can easily get kind of like a gummy thing going on, or like burnt flour on the bottom. We use a mix of semolina and 00. Heavier on the semolina, and it's a really nice, it's got a little bit of like the friction from the semolina, but still a little bit of softness from the 00. I will say when you do that, you need to really mix it because there's such different textures. It's almost, have you seen those kids' crafts where it's like the layered things?
The sandcraft.
The sandcraft. Yeah, if you don't mix it, it'll look like that. Sometimes when we pack for pop-ups, we don't mix it till we get there and it looks like that's like yellow and then white. But I would say 2-to-1 semolina to 00.
Making sure that your oven floor, you're sweeping that oven floor all the
Yes.
time to make sure that you're not picking up all of that semolina and extra flour. That's a really important thing to make sure you're aware of. And also making sure that you're just not coating the bottom. You want to make sure you're dusting off that flour so that when you're putting it in, you don't have all that excess burning flour.
What type of yeast do you use?
So Roxana's sourdough, so she has a yeast from Mother Nature in her dough.
Right.
Jillana?
We use a dry active yeast. Yep.
And one thing that is definitely true for everything that is naturally leavened, but really, really important with pizza is if you actually use a whole grain in when you feed your starter is the rate of fermentation is sort of more consistent and stable. It's the same effect that whole grains have in your body. Like how like if you suffer diabetes, they say eat whole grains because they help regulate your absorption of sugar.
Rather than
it's
white
a
flour.
similar phenomenon with a sourdough starter.
Yeah, it's a slower feed for the
Exactly.
yeast.
Thank you. You said 24 to 48 hours for your dough. How often do you handle it during that 24 to 48 hours?
I didn't ask you. So are you bulk fermenting for 24 to 48 hours? So bulk fermenting, so not touching the dough yet, not putting it into dough balls yet.
Right. It's actually always 48 total minimum, if that
So
makes sense. So
start
24, 20, typically about 24 for the bulk ferment, which is, we really like bulk ferment. I will say it takes up a lot of space. You know what I mean? We have giant Lexans. We do a lot of pizzas. So they take up a lot of space, and some of the advantages of doing like a biga is you can keep that in the fridge and just do batch by batch. But yeah, so the bulk ferment is just going to go in a big Lexan, which is like a box, for the 24 hours room temperature. And then the next day we ball it up, put it into dough trays, and it goes into the fridge for another 24. Then it'll come out at the time of service, not at the time of service, but like 6 hours prior to service.
Roxana, same question. What are you doing for your bulk? Let's separate bulk ferment versus
Yeah.
ball dough to actual usage.
So similar to bread, we do 4-hour bulk ferment, and we do. If you're familiar with folding the dough to build strength, we do 3 series of folds every hour during that 4-hour period, and then it goes in the refrigerator overnight for bulk fermenting, for cold fermenting.
So your folding process is very similar to what you would do if you were doing a pan pizza,
Yes.
where you're doing the 4-inch folds multiple times to build your gluten development.
And this makes a great pan pizza. This dough makes a great pan pizza.
What percentage of whole wheat blend and bread flour do you use for your pizzas?
Yeah.
And second question is, I guess, how much is your dough weight for your 18-inch pizza that you make?
All right. I heard the first part very well. So the percentage, a ratio of whole grains. If you're not familiar with myself or our bakery, I will bore you to death talking about whole grains, right? So, of course, there is sort of like a happy place where you will add enough whole grain to add flavor, character, and structure to your dough, but also not miss out on the benefits of using high gluten refined flour. So my happy ratio here is 20% whole grain flour to 80% refined high gluten flour. Did you ask about brands? Is that what you? No.
The other question was dough ball size, which I'll ask both of you.
So the dough ball.
Because you're an
size-
18-inch.
Yeah. So the dough ball size for the Big Mamas, the 18 inches, is 700
700 grams.
grams. Yes.
We do 10.5 ounces. So that gives you, per batch, that's about 30 dough balls.
So you're around 250 grams.
Yeah. 300.
Yeah.
300? Yeah, I'm trying to.
I'm like, don't hit me with the math.
That's right. I'm doing the math in my head. It's around 300
10.5
grams.
ounces,
And
yeah.
what size are you stretching to?
12
12
inch pizzas, yeah.
When you're mixing your dough, do you, Roxana, I think you mentioned that you do hand pulls and.
Yep. Yep.
Do you, Jillana, do you use a machine mixer? Do you try to target a specific temperature so it doesn't overproof when you're mixing it? Like some people use ice water, things like that.
Seasons are going to dictate that a little bit, but typically we use a lukewarm water, and then we do mix it, with like a 20-quart mixer. And then before the bulk ferment, we kind of fold it a couple of times into its container and go from there.
In regards for the homebreaker water type, is there some sort of test that I can do to see what the water's doing or something to look for in my bakes? Just always been curious if I should use distilled or something like that.
We use regular tap water,
So in Modernist Pizza, we write about this. There's a whole chapter about water. One thing that you can do is get pH strips, just like you do for your pool, and check it with the pH strips. They're really cheap. Highly recommend that so you can check your water balance. We used a variety of waters, including pool water, to debunk the whole thing about New York, and and it's all about the New York water, which any New Yorkers here? Sorry, it's bullshit. So California water is just as good as New York water, if not better, right?
If I can add a little something also, because I just did a little research about this regarding bread. So the one thing that people will tell you, if you wanted to be like really geeky about it, I guess, is that hard water is hard on your starters, right? In all my years baking sourdough, I have never been like, oh yeah, this water was really rough on my starter today, you know? So that's just the practical information. However, if you wanted to dig in a little further, there is a water report on the DWP website specific to your locality. So you can actually put your zip code, and it will pop out some report.
That'll give you the mineral breakdown.
Exactly. It will tell you how hard the water is. And I'm not sure I would be equipped to interpret that data, but there you have it.
And I know one of the things that Jillana mentioned earlier too is water temperature. So that is important when you're adding water to your dough, because it's yeast and it's alive. You want to keep that alive. So you don't want to go hot. You want to make sure that your water isn't cold either, unless you're in a really hot environment. Like if you're making pizza out in the desert and it's going to heat up pretty quickly, you want to cool your water down. But in fact, you want to keep it more at a room temp, because that's kind of what yeast loves. That's where it's going to get super happy and enjoy that flour that you've incorporated into the water.
For the novice pizza maker, home pizza maker, what do you mean when you talk about hydration, 60%, 66%? What is that like in relation to like flour or what have you?
So it's the amount of water in the dough. There's definitely been a big trend of super high hydration, which makes for a really, aesthetically, you're going to get a huge puff in the crust. Those fat tire Instagram pizzas you see, they're really beautiful.
Canotto.
You know what I'm
Canotto Italian style.
One more time?
Canotto? It's called Canotto.
Oh, is that what it's called?
It's called Canotto, which equates to the U-boat.
I just
in
learned
Italian.
something new. Nice. Yeah, so it's a beautiful look. That's definitely comes along with the super high hydration, I would say. I think Stephanie's really the expert on that, but I think you can also get a really good quality dough with a more mid-range, like 66. It really kind of just depends on what you're doing. I will say the super high hydration for a business like us who's mobile and the weather's unpredictable and the setting is unpredictable, working with a super, super wet, those really high hydration, I mean, one, we have to bang the pizzas out. They got to go quick. So for an outdoor setting, I think 66 is right where we want to be.
So it's 66% water to 100% flour.
And there's a really good, easy way to do math. Just think for every 100 grams of flour, you're adding 66 grams of water.
And when you get into, like, Jillana and Roxana are both stretching and making rounds, a lot of the pan pizzas are a higher hydration. So your Detroit-style pizzas, that's how you get kind of that airiness in the crumb, to a Sicilian, to an even higher hydration, which is the Italio style. I don't know if anyone's got Italio out there, but that's usually pushing your water up to 100%. Some people are even doing 110%, where Detroit's are usually like 70 to 75%.
I heard that you use an iron oven. Is that correct? Was it an iron?
Yeah, the base is stone, but the dome is iron.
The
dome is also, the dome is iron, yeah.
What's the main differences between an iron oven and a wood oven?
One more time?
What's the main differences between an iron oven and a wood oven?
Well, it's still a wood-fired oven.
Yeah,
we use almond wood. It's just the dome of it heats quickly because it's not all clay.
I'm going to thank you guys for this panel. How about a big hand for our group today? Thank you so much. Thanks to both of you. We appreciate it. I'm sure you'll stick around if you have any more questions. You can definitely chat with them. Come back in 10, 15 minutes for our last panel of the day. Keep enjoying pizza. We're here for 2 more hours, guys. Thank you.